The top stories tonight in Y News. The public is now required to wear both full face shields and face masks whenever going out of their homes.
Malacan clarifies that the dry run of face-to-face classes in January is not mandatory for students.
Senate Committee of the Whole plans to look into the government's vaccination program. Cases of new COVID-19 strain was found circulating in England.
An international criminal court prosecutor sees reasonable basis for the crimes against humanity during President Rodrigo Duterte's war on drugs.
And know why experts say that any amount of drinking alcohol is bad for your health. Good evening, Philippines and the world. Today is Tuesday, December 15, 2020. I am Harleen Delgado.
Join us in the next hour as we deliver today's top stories around the country and in other parts of the world. I'm Angelo Castro III.
We are also seen in 1,935 satellite monitoring centers nationwide and via live streaming worldwide through the UNTV News and Rescue social media accounts and our website, untvweb.com. I am William Theo.
The Interagency Task Force on Emerging Infectious Diseases has now required the public to wear both face shields and face masks at all times outside of their residence. Meanwhile, provincial buses with point-to-point routes can now resume operations. Rosalie Cos will tell us why.
It is now mandatory for all people to wear face mask and full coverage face shield whenever going out of residences through IATF Resolution Number 88. This means half face shield which partly cover the face is not allowed. In the past, face mask and face shield are only required in public transportation, public places, and business establishments. The new provision was made to prevent the severe transmission of coronavirus disease this holiday season.
It's really because of the possibility na tayo magkakaroon ng surge itong panahon ng Kapaskuhan. So it's an additional protection para maiwasan po ang surge. Lahat naman po ito hindi ito re-require kung hindi po makakabuti sa ating kalusugan.
It is up to the local government units to impose penalties or punishments to those who will not comply to this health protocol. Meanwhile, the IATF also approved the return of operations of provincial buses in point-to-point routes allowed by the Land Transportation, Franchising and Regulatory Board and local government unit. The operation of their stopover and transit terminals are allowed to resume. The LTFRB is directed to create the necessary operational guidelines on this. Rosalie Cos, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
Meanwhile, Provincial Bus Operators Association appeals to the Land Transportation, Franchising and Regulatory Boards or LTFRB to reopen additional provincial bus routes as more people are expected to travel to their hometowns. Meanwhile, despite of the limited trips, the Parañaque Integrated Terminal Exchange is bracing for the possible surge of passengers during the holiday season. Joan Nano has this report live. Yes, Joanne?
Harleen, as the Interagency Task Force for the Management of Emerging Infectious Diseases approved the resumption of point-to-point provincial bus trips, the Provincial Bus Operators Association is calling on the LTFRB as well as the local government units to open up for more provincial routes as many passengers want to travel back to their hometowns. The group welcomes the decision of the IATF to allow point-to-point provincial bus trips approved by the LTFRB and the LGUs and vows to comply with the minimum health standards set by the government.
We are very grateful dun sa decision ng Malacanang, and kung ano man yung safety protocol, we are willing to abide by all the safety protocols. Willing na willing kami at welcome na welcome yung announcement na yan.
However, Harleen, the group is demanding for the government to identify specific routes that will be allowed, and they are appealing to the LTFRB to allow them to use their bus terminals in Metro Manila. The LTFRB is yet to give their statement on the matter, but they are expected to come up with the guidelines in the coming days. Meanwhile, the management of Parañaque Integrated Terminal Exchange is preparing for the possible influx of passengers bound for provinces this holiday season. PITX is serving as the terminal for provincial buses bound for Cavite, Laguna, and Batangas. Currently, there is an average of 60,000 to 65,000 passengers daily in PITX, but they are expecting the numbers to spike by 70,000 next week as holiday season approaches. And as passengers are expected to surge, PITX says that implementation of health and safety protocols will be a challenge for them.
Medyo challenge lang ito kasi ilan sa ating mga kababayan tila nakakalimot na from time to time dito sa mga health standards na to. Kaya naman dinodoble natin ang ating efforts upang sa ganun tiyakin na sila iligtas sa kanilang pagbiyahe at lahat ng makakasalumuhan nila lalo na dito sa ating terminal.
The authorities are reminding the passengers bound for provinces to secure all the necessary documents that their LGU destination is requiring to avoid delays and inconveniences. Harleen, they are still discouraging children below 14 years old as well as senior citizens 65 years old and above to travel, except that they have secured their travel authority from their local police office. Harleen.
Thank you, John Nano, reporting live.
Meanwhile, Isabela Province has been reverted to general community quarantine or GCQ until December 31 due to the surge of coronavirus disease cases in the area. Presidential spokesperson Secretary Harry Roque Jr. said reverting Isabela to a stricter GCQ classification was approved under Resolution Number 88 of the Interagency Task Force for the Management of Emerging Infectious Diseases. The IATF reached this decision following the recommendation of Governor Rodolfo Albano III and available data on COVID-19 infections. Santiago City, however, remains under modified GCQ. Active cases in Isabela Province soared to 447 as of Monday, December 14. Meanwhile, Metro Manila and 7 other areas remain under GCQ until the end of the year. In other news, London will be entering the highest tier of restrictions following a spike in coronavirus infection rates and the emergence of a new strain. Mavian Dog explains why live. Yes, Maeve, go ahead.
William, following exponential rises in cases across London, South Wales, and parts of East and Southeast England, more than 34 million people will enter into Tier 3 restrictions, the highest level of restrictions at midnight on Wednesday. This also follows the World Health Organization's announcement of a new COVID-19 strain found in 1,000 individuals in England. Here is what the Secretary of State for Health, Matt Hancock, said during his health update in the House of Commons yesterday.
Over the last few days, thanks to our world-class genomic capability in the UK, we have identified a new variant of coronavirus, which may be associated with the faster spread in the southeast of England.
Despite this speculation, Mr. Hancock also said that there is no evidence yet that the new strain will cause a more serious disease, and it is highly unlikely that it will not respond to the vaccine being rolled out in the UK. WHO expert Mike Ryan says authorities are looking at the significance of the new strain, with other experts doubting its seriousness due to the emergence of other mutations over the recent months. Meanwhile, tighter restrictions will mean the closure of pubs, cafes and restaurants, or restriction to takeaway services, and also theaters canceling planned performances. These results to financial difficulties in the industry. Mr. Hancock also added that the spike in COVID cases could put hospitals under overwhelming pressure, leading to the decision of putting other areas surrounding London under Tier 3 restrictions. Mr. Hancock assures that the government will continue to support those who are most impacted by these measures through UK's furlough scheme and self-employment support. William?
Thank you, May Viandog, reporting live from Australia.
The Office of the International Criminal Court's prosecutor said there is a reasonable basis to believe that crimes against humanity were committed during President Rodrigo Duterte's war on drugs, and a formal investigation will be decided soon. But presidential spokesperson Harry Roque said it will be a waste of the court's resources and time. Kath Dumraos will tell us why.
The final decision on whether the International Criminal Court's chief prosecutor will seek authorization to launch an investigation into alleged extrajudicial killings linked to the government's war on drugs would be out in the first half of 2021. The ICC prosecutor launched a preliminary examination into the alleged extrajudicial killings in the context of the government's anti-drug crackdown in February 2018, leading to the withdrawal of the Philippines from the Hague-based body. ICC prosecutor Fatou Bensouda said in a report that it is satisfied that information available provides a reasonable basis to believe that the crimes against humanity of murder, torture, and the infliction of serious physical injury and mental harm as other inhumane acts were committed between 2016 and 2019. Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque dismissed the report as speculative and legally erroneous.
We do not agree with her. It's legally erroneous dahil meron po tayong minimum gravity na required. Hindi po lahat ng krimen ay liniliti sa ICC. Pero gaya na aking sinabi, meron na pong desisyon ng ICC na hindi sasayangin ng ICC ang pera o ng kanyang mga opisyales sa mga kaso na hindi naman po uusad dahil walang kooperasyon.
In March 2018, the Philippine government notified the United Nations Secretary-General of its decision to withdraw from the Hague-based body a month after Bensouda initiated a preliminary examination into the alleged extrajudicial killings in the context of the government's anti-drug crackdown. The Philippine National Police has yet to receive any document from the ICC about a report. The government acknowledges the deaths of nearly 6,000 drug personalities in anti-narcotics operations. The Philippine National Police reported 7,987 by the end of October, all of whom reportedly violently resisted arrest. Kat Dumaraos, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
And for those watching us on YouTube, please click the subscribe button you see on the right side of your screen and ring the bell for notification. You may also follow us on Facebook.
The pilot testing of face-to-face classes in selected schools will run from January 11 to 23. But the palace clarifies it will not be compulsory but rather voluntary on the part of the students or parents. Rosalie Cos explains why.
President Rodrigo Duterte has approved the proposal of the Department of Education to conduct pilot implementation of the face-to-face classes. This will be conducted in selected schools in COVID-19 low-risk areas for one whole month.
Alam natin na talagang itong ginagawa nating blended learning is far from ideal. At ang ideal pa rin talaga is face-to-face. So we're trying to see if we can live with the virus at malalaman po natin kung po pwede nga, lalo na dun sa mga areas na talagang wala namang COVID na.
The palace insists the dry run of physical classes is not mandatory and only voluntary learners will join. Parents' permit is a must for those who want to participate. The local government must also approve the conduct of the face-to-face classes.
Wala pong pilitan. Voluntaryo po ito. Kinakailangan merong approval ng mga magulang. At bukod po dito, dapat papayag din po ang LGU. Kung ayaw ng LGU, hindi po natin ipipilit itong pilot face-to-face.
Meanwhile, Malacan mentions the timeline for the dry run of face-to-face classes in selected schools. From December 14 to 18, regional directors will submit to Education Secretary Leonor Bellones their nominated schools for the pilot implementation. On December 28, the education chief has to select the pilot schools. The orientation, mobilization, and determination of preparedness of selected schools will be done from January 4 to 8, 2021. From January 11 to 23, pilot activities will be implemented, which DepEd and COVID-19 National Task Force will jointly monitor. From January 25 to 29, the regional office will submit the reports on the pilot implementation, and evaluation will be made for final recommendation to the President. Rosa Licos, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
Meanwhile, a group of teachers did not oppose the government's approval to conduct a dry run for face-to-face learning in areas with low COVID-19 infections. But rather, they are putting up a proposal. Dante Amento tells us why live. Yes, Dante, good evening.
William, the Alliance of Concerned Teachers wants to assure the safety of the educators and learners who will join the proposed face-to-face classes in the country. There should be functional clinics and nurses, wide classrooms arrangement, and enough fund in case of emergency. Though the group had recently opposed the opening of classes, but for now, they are not against the President's decision.
Ang habol lang namin, dapat ma-ensure na yung ating mga eskwelahan na lalahok sa dry run na ito ay may health facilities, may health workers, at yung mga estudyante at mga teachers na papasok dito ay sumailalim doon sa health screening sa swab test para sa COVID-19.
ACT Teachers Secretary General Raymond Basilio says they are drafting a proposal for the Department of Education for the safety of physical classes. Meanwhile, a group of private schools opposes the conduct of face-to-face classes or class until the vaccine will be available.
I would even suggest if next school year we still do not have the vaccine, then wag mo na rin mag face-to-face. Next school year, I'm talking already of 2021, 2022. Pag yan, medyo malabo pa, di bali na.
William, the Federation of Association of Private Schools Administrators, or FAPSA, believes that DepEd is not yet ready for these face-to-face classes, and it will just put the students' lives to the danger. Meanwhile, the Department of Education said that schools that will be part of the dry run will have to undergo evaluation first. And that's the latest live. Back to you, William.
Thank you, Dante Amento, reporting live.
The Senate Committee of the Whole is set to convene to look into the government's plan for the COVID-19 vaccination in the country. The Senate adopted yesterday the resolution of Senator Francis Kiko Pangilinan seeking to inquire and discuss the preparations of the government, including the funding sources, the safety and efficacy of the vaccines that the country will use, and the implementation of the mass vaccination program.
Do we have the logistical capacity to ensure an effective delivery of the vaccines to the grassroots? What is the game plan? The country needs clear and concrete action steps and deliverables in a vaccination program that our citizens can trust and believe in. It is incumbent upon government to provide this.
Senate President Pro Tempore Ralph Recto suggested to conduct the hearing once the Congress resumes session on January 18 to give the top officials some time to finalize its plan. However, Senate President Vicente Soto III said, who sits as the committee's chairperson, he will set the date once they have received the report from the IATF as a result of its upcoming vaccine summit on December 16. Earlier, vaccine czar Carlito Galvez Jr. said they are expecting the vaccine from Chinese pharmaceutical company Sinovac to first arrive in the country in March next year. Based on the rough estimates provided by the Office of Senator Sonny Angara, Sinovac is the second most expensive among the vaccine candidates, with over 3,600 pesos for the 2 doses. A total of 72.5 billion pesos has been allocated for the purchase of COVID-19 vaccines under under the 2021 national budget, of which 2.5 billion pesos was placed under the Department of Health, while the 70 billion pesos was lodged under the unprogrammed funds. Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque earlier said this will be funded through loans from multilateral sources. However, Senator Panfilo Lacson expressed disappointment, saying it was hard to accept the palace spokesman's statement. According to Lacson, it was a sad reality that the national government does not get tired of borrowing money. He noted that as of October 20, the Philippines' outstanding debt is at 10 trillion pesos compared to 8 trillion pesos last year and almost 3 trillion pesos 2 decades ago. The coronavirus disease vaccine produced by Pfizer-BioNTech has a good chance of getting an emergency use authorization in the Philippines. Aiko Miguel reports why.
The Food and Drug Administration expects that by the following weeks or early 2021, other vaccine manufacturers may be able to secure their emergency use authorization in the Philippines. FDA explains securing EUA in other countries would pave way for faster EUA approval in the country. According to FDA Director General Eric Domingo, one of the first possible vaccine manufacturer to apply in the country is Pfizer-BioNTech.
Siguro po malamang nauna silang makakakuha ng EUA dito dahil kompleto na po kasi sila ng dokumento dahil na-submit na po nila sa dalawang ibang regulatory agency, and these are trusted and reliable regulatory agencies, yung sa US FDA at saka sa UK. So malaki po ang chance na mag-apply sila agad dito sa atin at mukhang hindi naman po sila mahihirapan.
But according to DG Domingo, they are not sure yet what vaccine manufacturer will be able to provide COVID-19 vaccines in the country. Aside from quality and efficacy of a vaccine, the government needs to secure vaccine supply.
The matter of producing and supplying and allocating supply for the Philippines, yun po ang hindi natin masabi, no? Kung sino po ang unang makakapag-supply nung talaga pong bakuna na maaaring ipadala dito sa atin.
The FDA also warns that they will not approve vaccine manufacturers that will bribe drug regulators to have their vaccine enter in the country. This is DG Domingo's response on the bribery issue of Sinovac on Chinese drug regulators to hasten the approval of their SARS and swine flu vaccine in the past years.
Very objective naman ang ating gagawin pagsusuri dyan. Depende lamang po sa datos at saka sa evidence na ipapakita nila. No? Dito po sa Pilipinas, huwag po nilang susubukang manukol dahil magkakaproblema po sila at sila po ay lalong hindi ma-approve. We will treat the company as a company that's legitimately doing business, but of course, once they try something, sila na po ang mananagot at magkakaproblema po sila ng malaki.
Meanwhile, FDA is currently evaluating the application of Clover Biopharmaceuticals to conduct clinical trial in the Philippines. On the other hand, FDA is waiting for Janssen of Johnson & Johnson to submit application to them. This after passing the evaluation of the vaccine expert panel and the ethics review board. Aiko Miguel, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
The tally of coronavirus disease cases in the Philippines increased to 451,839. The Department of Health reported today that 1,135 new individuals who tested positive for COVID-19, raising the number of active cases to 24,160, which is 5.3% of the total number of confirmed cases. The areas with the highest number of new infections were Rizal Province with 117, Bulacan with 84, Quezon City with 71, Isabela with 39, and Laguna with 38. Recovered COVID-19 patients jumped to 418,867 with 173 more survivors. However, 56 new fatalities were confirmed, raising the death count to 8,812. House Speaker Alan Velasco sees the passage anytime this week of the proposed bill of the establishment of the Cocoa Levy Trust Fund. But a group of coconut farmers wants President Rodrigo Duterte to veto it. Ray Pelayo will tell us why.
Under the approved House Bill 8136 or the Coconut Farmers and Industry Trust Fund Act, The annual allocations from the Cocoa Levy Fund will be distributed to 10 programs. The fund will be distributed to shared facilities, farm improvement, the development of hybrid seeds, strengthening of farmers groups and cooperatives, scholarship program, health and medical program, credit provisions, infrastructure development, training for farmers, and planting and replanting program. The other version was earlier passed by the Senate. Joey Faustino of the Coconut Industry Reform Movement said both versions will limit the program that will benefit the farmers. He emphasized that the Cocoa Levy Fund should not be part of the government fund and should be exclusively used for the benefit of coconut farmers and the industry. It is estimated that the Cocoa Levy Fund now has a value of 76 billion pesos. This is from the collected tax from the cocoa farmers during the term of former President Ferdinand Marcos.
Sabi nila, magsagawa ng plano, roadmap ng industriya ang PCA. But to take into consideration na 10% dito sa ahensyang to, 5% doon sa ahensyang to ng annual allocation. Ano pa ipaplano mo? Isinagawa na nila. Itinago lang nila sa mga programa kuno na kailangan ng mga magnyanyog.
The group also questions the small portion of farmers' representation in the board and even in the trust fund committee.
Hindi po kami sinama at nasa gobyerno pong lahat ang bubuong trust fund committee para mamahala o magmaneho ng pera.
Ed Mora also noted the removal of the provision for the limitation of beneficiaries' qualification. They want to limit it to farmers who only owns farms with 5 hectares below. The group is now planning to ask President Rodrigo Duterte to veto the bill if the same version will be agreed by both chamber.
Sayang ang panahon, parang yung last Congress, 17th Congress, nabito. Dahil din daw walang limit. Isa yun sa rason eh. Walang limit ang beneficiaryo. Ba't inuulit pa?
And if the same version will be signed into law, the group will ask the intervention of the Supreme Court. Ray Pilayo, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
For those watching us on YouTube, please click the subscribe button you see on the right side of your screen and ring the bell for notification. You may also follow us on Facebook. And for the news abroad, here's Stephanie C. reporting live from Hong Kong.
Good evening, William. The Electoral College decisively confirmed Joe Biden as the nation's next U.S. president. Sonic Cause will tell us why.
Hours after winning the state-by-state Electoral College vote that officially confirmed the U.S. presidency, President-elect Joe Biden hit back at incumbent President Donald Trump. Trump continuously challenged the legitimacy of the U.S. election result with lawsuits rejected by courts across the country. But Biden said democracy prevailed.
You know, in this battle for the soul of America, democracy prevailed. And now it's time to turn the page, as we've done throughout our history, to unite, to heal.
The affirmation made by the Electoral College is one of the final steps for Biden to take office. He reached the milestone with 306 votes, while Trump received 232. The Electoral College cast its votes on Monday for the president. The elections for which were held on November 3, and the electors met in their respective states following certification of the results. Typically, the meaning of the electoral votes does not get much attention, but because of Trump's allegation of massive fraud, it received international attention. Meanwhile, Biden praised the elections officials who fulfill their mandate despite various challenges amid pandemic.
One of the extraordinary things we saw this year was that everyday Americans, they showed a deep and unwavering faith in and a commitment to the law. They did their duty in the face of a pandemic. And then they could not and would not give credence to what they knew was not true.
The results of the voting process will be sent to Washington, D.C. and will be formally counted in a joint session of Congress on January 6, 2021. This will be presided over by Vice President Mike Pence. On January 20, 2021, Biden will formally take the oath of office as the 46th U.S. President. Sonicos UNTV News and Rescue, USA. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
Intelligence agencies around the world are rushing to assess the extent of a large-scale espionage attack by a nation-state hacker on multiple U.S. federal agencies, including the U.S. military and the Pentagon. Marvy Delphine will give us the details live. Marvy?
Steph, a serious breach has triggered an emergency directive from the U.S. Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, or CISA, instructing all government agencies worldwide to halt the use of a compromised version of SolarWinds software that was delivered by an automatic software update. U.S. Department of Homeland Security, or DHS, raised the alarms on Sunday after learning that software may have been used by most Fortune 500 companies, businesses, and multiple federal agencies, including the U.S. Treasury, U.S. military, and the Pentagon, had been hijacked to gain entry to secure IT systems. The hackers, backed by a foreign government believed to be Russia, broke into the U.S. Commerce Department's Office software, Microsoft 365, by tricking the platform's authentication controls, which allowed the monitoring of internal email traffic for at least 9 months without being detected, according to 3 people familiar with the investigation. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov dismissed the allegations that Russia was behind the attack and that Washington had not responded to their offer for cybersecurity deals. The breaches are said to be connected to a broad campaign that also involved the recently disclosed hack on FireEye, a major U.S. cybersecurity company with government and commercial contracts. The breaches also present a major challenge to the incoming administration of President-elect Joe Biden, as officials scramble to limit the damage and determine what information was stolen and try to ascertain what it will be used for. The full scope of the hack is unclear, and it is still in the early stages of a cyber investigation so large-scale that it could take months or even years to complete. Steph?
Thank you, Marvy, for that report. Singapore kicks off its vaccination program strategy after it has approved the Pfizer-BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine set to arrive in the country end of this month. Early Briones has the details live. Early?
Step Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong announced on a televised speech that the Health Sciences Authority, or HSA, have approved the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine for the country and is due to be received by the end of this month. According to Prime Minister Lee, Singapore will prioritize high-risk people, such as frontline personnel, including healthcare workers, as well as the elderly and vulnerable people. PM Lee mentioned that if all goes well,
the first shipment should arrive by the end of this month, making Singapore one of the first countries to obtain this vaccine. We also expect other vaccines to arrive in Singapore in the coming months.
PM Lee mentioned that if all goes well according to plan, there will be enough vaccine for everyone in Singapore by the third quarter of 2021. The Singapore Ministry of Health has set up a committee of doctors to help recommend a vaccination strategy for the country. The committee recommended for the whole adult population of Singapore aged 16 and above, with the exclusion of immunocompromised people, to be vaccinated on voluntary means.
First priority will be given to those who are at greatest risk, healthcare workers and frontline personnel, as well as the elderly and vulnerable.
PM Lee mentioned on his Facebook page the importance of receiving the approved vaccine and committed that he, along with other senior colleagues, will be getting vaccinated early to prove their stand. Singapore is working on the side to get access to other vaccines from Moderna and Sinovac. Singapore has recorded 0 community transmissions in the last 24 hours. However, there are 5 imported cases reported and placed on stay-at-home notice upon arrival in the country. Stephanie?
Thank you, Early, for that report. Okay. And those are the reasons behind the news here. And for those watching us on YouTube, please click the subscribe button you see on the right side of your screen and ring the bell for notification. You may also follow us on Facebook. Back to you, William.
Thank you. Thank you, Stephanie C., reporting live from Hong Kong.
And those are the reasons behind the news, December 15, 2020. I am Harleen Delgado.
Reasons we deliver to you as they unfold. I'm Angelo Castro III.
Because we need to know, we will always ask why. I am William Theo. We serve the people. We give glory to God.